Oh boy, this week's episode of Classroom of the Elite was ice cold with what they did with Kay, but damn, if Ayano's plans aren't effective, man, because it's not enough to just have a video to basically save her from the bullying the goon squad. That's enough that she would be fine, but what would Ayano get out of that? She would have her little, okay, maybe she likes him, but it's not enough to control and to have another pawn in his basically little growing army. So the idea of breaking her and making her hit rock bottom, not only from what they did, but what he threatened to do to her to show that she is just a parasite, that she's been latching on to people and has been using them as a shield. The difference between what she's been using up to this point and him is that he actually can protect her and will use her for his own advantage while giving something back. And it was insane to see that scene because the lighting was probably one of the best use I've seen in this show to date, including some of the stuff in season 1. The idea of almost like, you're going down into like a cellar or just like some deep part of the ship, the rustic kind of art style and everything. It's just, that's where you expect Freddy Krueger to pop up, right? That's some straight out of horror shit. And to see the bullying, to see the torture, those girls are absolute scumbags. Like, it doesn't matter what she says or does, they just want to hurt her because they're absolute capital C's. Not gonna drop the word because YouTube wouldn't like it, but you get my point. They are bitches to the highest degree, and if there was a little accident where they fell overboard and a shark ate them, I wouldn't be crying. But I'm much more interested to see how they will be manipulated now that they essentially have proof. And I'm actually glad they went that route, not something super complex, but just the idea of video proof, but it's the way he went about presenting himself before giving that proof. Just to see him go from like spread your legs to then, what looks to be like a groping scene, but just exposing the scar on her stomach. Him just exposing just how frail and weak she is, but also recognizing like, you can't get the upper hand on me. That I am better than anyone else you've ever met to this point, but the difference is I can actually protect you. Just go with my plan. It's so interesting because the difference of giving that video proof after all that versus where most people would give it before is that she is now loyal to the point of whatever he says or does, she knows, one, he will go the extra mile, so there's a bit of fear there. There's a bit of fear of not wanting to betray someone who, one, can protect me, but two, could probably do worse things than those girls ever could do. And I think that level of fear is something you don't see from characters often, and when you see them, holy shit, like, I don't know, man, it, like, gives me some Breaking Bad kind of vibes, I'm not gonna lie. Like, not exact, but you kind of get, like, that Walter White of, like, doing whatever it takes in order to succeed, and that shift in character can be insane, man. Holy shit, like, I was not expecting the episode to go quite the way it did, and the fact that they even went the extra mile to show us the resolution of the Find the VIP. It's interesting because one of the things that it kind of did slip my mind because season 1's been a little bit, is the idea that anything can essentially be bought with points. One, you can actually ascend to the top ranking class if you have, I think it's 20 million, right? But ultimately, like, the idea of you can't switch your SIM cards because it's locked down. But if you have the points, you probably could. There's probably anything that you need, you can buy if you have the money to do so. And it's interesting the idea of swapping the SIM cards in that way. Immediately when they decided to mute the audio when Ayano was like, oh, blah, 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 we know he was saying you're the VIP. So it was interesting when they decided to go a different route with it because it actually kind of blindsided me a bit. I was like, oh, maybe they're not going the obvious, he was the VIP. Maybe there was a secret they're waiting to show us an episode or two from now. So when it was revealed that the dude next to him was, I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting that they swap phones in that way. But the idea that they went the extra mile of not once but twice swapping phones, swapping the SIM card so when someone calls, because people are going to be naturally suspicious no matter what's happening, no matter how likely something appears to be. So the idea of calling the phone and calling out the bullshit of like, no, that's actually his phone, they're all going to naturally believe it without second guessing it. But that's where the third swap comes in, and it's so brilliant to see how it's essentially what they wanted, but it's not necessarily exactly the victory they want. And it really does give me the impression that the deeper we get into season 2, the more of these characters are going to have to look over their shoulder. And it feels like Horikita kind of has the biggest target painted on her right now, especially with Macho Joe over there, who really feels like he's got his eyes on her, and that could be very bad. But it'll be interesting because the biggest thing for Ayano wasn't necessarily getting a bunch of points from this. It was more so being able to control more, and especially the girl side of things, which Horikita couldn't do. But Kay having blackmail on what they have done, which goes to explain not only one, he was wanting to observe how bad her bullying situation was, but two, needed the absolute worst video proof, not someone pushing or saying some mean things, slapping, kicking, and just all these horrible things. He needed the absolute worst video evidence, and he has that, meaning that she can now blackmail them into doing what he wants. Ultimately, the idea of a character this tactical, this smart, willing to go to whatever degree he needs to get the job done is what makes him such a frightening character. Those characters who aren't smiling, who aren't laughing because they're enjoying it, but the characters who you can't really understand what they're thinking at any possible moment, even following and getting inside their head, it is hard to really say what Aino is truly feeling or thinking at any given moment 100% clear. And that's what makes him such a horrifyingly interesting protagonist to follow in a situation with a school that is as toxic and corrupt and as backstabbing as this one can be. And that's why getting such an important pawn is crucial for him. In fact, that he did it by episode 3 of this season is fantastic. Not gonna lie, I think Kei's probably the most interesting thing next to Aino this season so far. It's probably not even an unpopular opinion, just given the backstory, the Parasite kind of comparison, and just what she'll have to offer going forward. And it'll be interesting to see how he'll be able to use that to his advantage in future situations. And we didn't get to see how much she spent, which I'm sure probably eventually we'll get some callback. I mean, hell, they even give us a refresher about the one girl in terms of how she had like nearly 3 million points at the start of season 1 there. So I don't want to know just yet. I do want to leave it up to the anime and we'll see where it goes. But I imagine the idea of swapping SIM cards probably costs a pretty penny. So I'm interested to see if it's something that he'll have any regrets with, or if this is exactly everything he wanted or more, right? It will be very fun to see. But I think in terms of pure directing, probably the best episode that I can recall. Granted, season 1's been a while, but I think the entire first half of this episode with the lighting, the animation, the first slap from that one girl who is basically, you know, who they're saying they're doing it for, doesn't want to do it, but then as it goes and the demonic faces, when you see Kei's face and how it just feels like she's a moment away from just jumping off that ship and hoping Davy Jones takes her. It was pretty graphic, man. But then to see how far he himself went and just the idea of not only just letting her emotionally break from what they did, but then doing so himself to make sure that she would stay loyal is insane, man. Like, that is some top tier, horrifying, holy shit, what did I see moments. And holy shit, this probably might be the best episode of the week. I mean, granted, the week kind of did just start, and there's a lot of good anime, but man, it's going to be hard to see something top in this week's Classroom of the Elite episode, but hey, that's just me. I think the voice actors did a good job. The bitches, sold their performance. Kei's just feeling like she's a moment away from dying was painful to listen to, and Aino's cool, calm, and collected attitude never fails to send a shiver up my spine. But what an episode, man. I am so excited to see what's going to happen now, because this almost felt like the prologue to where this show wants to go in season 2, and obviously with season 3 as well, and I'm excited to see what type of shit we're going to see next. Loved it, 10 out of 10 episode if you ask me. Thoughts down below, what did you think, and what do you hope to see in future episodes? Do let me know. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.